Hello pals and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be doing my Victober reading plans. Victober is Victorian October, which is a month dedicated to reading literature from the Victorian period. There are tons of announcement videos on YouTube with all of the challenges which you can track down if needed. This year there are a lot of hosts and organisers, so I can't link them all, other than to say a big thank you to them for organising this, because I'm sure it is a lot of work behind the scenes. Right, let's get started. I've selected a few books that I'm really excited to read, and what I'm planning to do is to make them fit with the challenges after I've finished. Also, I'm not aiming to complete all of the challenges. There are 10 this year, which is quite a lot. I do have some kind of ongoing personal reading projects and some non-fiction which is related to the Victorian period that I'd also like to read in October. Right, first up we're headed to my long read of the month, which will be a Victorian classic, of course, and I'm still deciding between two books, so I'll run you through both of them. They are The Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens and Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. I'm currently in a Charles Dickens phase and I've kind of been revisiting his novels kind of on whim based on what I'm feeling like in the moment. But I have decided to be a little bit more methodical and begin at the beginning with his first novel, The Pickwick Papers, and then read the novels hopefully in order of publication. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself with this. I don't want this to become a kind of stick to like beat myself with, as it were. If I really feel like picking up another novel, I will just head to it. And also because an awful lot of these I have read before, I will be listening to the vast majority of them on audiobook. So my first option for my long read, The Pickwick Papers, this was published I think in 1837 and serialised across 1836 to 1837. This is a reread for me. I read it a very long time ago, I think in the summer before I went to university, and honestly I can't remember too much about this. I can remember having fun, and from what I can recall, this is a very like episodic novel. There isn't necessarily a like through line in terms of plot, and essentially you're following a group of friends as they travel and adventure through England. The Pickwick Papers always reminds me of another favourite which I probably will read in December, and that is Little Women because of their Pickwick Club. I would love to be more familiar with this novel and see eventually how Charles Dickens kind of progresses as we get into his later works, which generally I have to say are my favourites. Last week I shared a video about my favourite classics on audiobook, and I did mention a few different versions of Charles Dickens in that video. What I've seen on Audible since is that they have a collected works of Charles Dickens, so all of his novels, all 15 of them, and his Christmas stories in a like definitive edition that is released on the 4th of October. Even if I decide to go with Vanity Fair, I do still want to get this because it's one credit for all 15 of his novels, and although some of the narrators kind of might not be for me, it still seems like really good value. So I'll get that, and hopefully I get on with the Pickwick Papers narrator. So that's my first option. Reading Dickens in Victober is the perfect fit, and the idea of having Dickens to head to over kind of autumn and winter just feels like such a treat. Now my second option is Vanity Fair. In my summer reading video I did the exact same thing as I'm doing now. I had two options for my summer long read: Parade's End by Ford Madox Ford or Vanity Fair. I chose Parade's End and I'm finishing it at the moment, and I've had the most wonderful time, but I do still really want to get to Vanity Fair. It's a really like iconic Victorian classic that I've never read and I really want to. I'd love to say I could read The Pickwick Papers and Vanity Fair in the same month, but they are quite long, so I'm trying to be realistic with kind of the time I have available. I mean, you never know but I think to manage my own expectations, it's probably best to pick one. Vanity Fair, published in 1848, like I said, a really iconic classic set during the Napoleonic Wars, which is a time period that I absolutely love. I already know the basic plot of Vanity Fair just through osmosis, and I did start to watch an adaptation that was on ITV a few years ago before I stopped watching that because I knew I wanted to read the book first. I've also had a look at the challenges, and I know that Vanity Fair will tick off a few, like the challenge where friendship is featured. What I don't want to do is to keep on pushing this one like back, because this year I also have my eye on the Count of Monte Cristo too. So right now I'd say I'm falling more on the side of the Pickwick Papers than Vanity Fair, but we'll have to see how I feel at the very beginning of October. So they're my two potential long reads. And next up I have Gothic Tales by Elizabeth Gaskell. This featured in the first ever book haul on this channel, and my mum gave this to me last Christmas. Elizabeth Gaskell is one of my favourite authors. October seems like the perfect month to start this in. This is a collection of short stories by Elizabeth Gaskell, Gothic tales, I think ghost stories, kind of more eerie, more sinister short stories that she's written. I have got into the habit in the mornings of reading some poems from whatever poetry collection I'm reading over October, and however long it takes me to finish this, I'm just aiming for, instead of reading a poem, reading about 5 to 10 pages of this a day. That means that I might not finish this in October, but I'm completely fine with that. Other stories in this collection, like The Poor Clare, like Lois the Witch, I have read before, but I think revisiting them will be a lot of fun. I did consider for a few days making my long read of the month potentially Wives and Daughters, and over the weekend I've been very tempted to watch the BBC adaptation of North and South, which is one of my favourite adaptations. It's just as soon as autumn starts I switch into like Elizabeth Gaskell mode, but that is my next read of the month. And that will, I think, fit the challenge about reading some Victorian literature that's not a novel, as they're short stories. Next up we have The Warden by Anthony Trollope. I'm finally diving back into the Barsetshire Chronicles. I have been thinking about rereading these for about 6 months. One of my favourite series of books. Again, I mentioned these in my video on my favourite classics on audiobook, the versions narrated by Timothy West. The Warden is the first in the Barsetshire Chronicles. My plan is to just kind of slowly work through these over autumn, winter, and then into next year. I'm not in any rush with these. I have read them before, 6 novels in total. I really love novels about the Church of England with characters who are part of the clergy. Anglican history and culture and philosophy I find so fascinating, and the first time I read this, that's mainly what I took from this. It's a world that is very familiar and very comforting, and I especially love those things in 19th and then early 20th century novels as well. This was written in the mid 1850s and is set in the fictional county of Barsetshire, a lot like Thomas Hardy's Wessex, and it follows Septimus Harding, who is the warden of an almshouse. An almshouse is basically like a charitable house for those in need. It's about the politics of his role and the church, and kind of reform of those things. And I know that some of you are big Trollope fans too, so I can't wait to revisit these and talk more about them on the channel over the next few months. Yeah, what a joy and what a thing to look forward to kind of headed into winter. Before I wrap up, I also wanted to mention a non-fiction title that I want to read, a literary biography, which doesn't fall under any of the challenges for Victober, but it makes the perfect companion, and that is Dickens The Enchanter by Peter Conrad. I mentioned in my summer book haul that I had my eye on this and I was given it for my birthday. So I've kind of been holding off reading this because I knew in my head that I had a plan to kind of start reading Dickens in publication order, and I've been saving this over the past few weeks to kind of make a start around October. As with any title that I haven't read yet, I cannot guarantee this one's quality, but I will keep you all updated in a wrap up. This was published earlier this year, I think in April. This is written by Peter Conrad. He is a historian, I think, and a critic for The Observer. I think he taught English literature at Christ Church in Oxford. He's also a lifetime reader of Dickens. I know reading some non-fiction about Dickens as I kind of work through his novels is going to make that experience so much more enjoyable. So I'm really excited to read this one. This is the perfect kind of work of non-fiction to read in October. That's it for today's video. A nice and short TBR. I do have my eye on a couple of things if I finish everything that I have on this list. I'd love to hear if you're taking part in Victober and what your plans are for what you're reading. I love to hear your comments as always. Always makes my day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!